Equals July 1940. The airfield at Biggin Hill trembles under the weight of a restless dawn. Flight Lieutenant James Crawford stands beside his supermarine Spitfire, its polished fuselage glinting pale gold in the rising sun. The scent of oil and grass mingles with the faint murmur of Merlin engines warming on the line. Pilots speak quietly, tense but resolute. News spreads. German formations have been sighted crossing the channel. Crawford glances at his watch. Time moves like the breath before a storm. "Stay sharp, Jimmy," calls his wingman, Peter Hall. The sound of orders echoed through radios, the mechanical symphony of takeoff beginning. As wheels lifted from the earth, England grew small beneath their wings, and the sky became their battleground. The Battle of Britain had begun, and the fate of a nation balanced on those fragile contrails.
Equals. At midday, the sky above Dover turned into a vast blue arena. Crawford's Spitfire cut through the clouds, the sunlight flashing across its wings. Radio chatter merged with the rising hum of engines. "Tally-ho!" came the cry as German Heinkels emerged, escorted by Messerschmitts. Cannon fire flashed, contrails tangled in violent spirals. Crawford's heart thundered as he locked onto a target. The enemy fighter rolled, smoke trailing. The world became motion and sound. Tracer rounds shredded the air. One thought pierced the chaos: protect the bombers, protect home. His window filled with flame as an enemy plane plunged to the sea. Then silence, only the steady hum of his own engine. Below, the white cliffs stood defiant, guarding a country that refused to bow.
Equals. In the mess hall that evening, laughter came brittle, forced. The room glowed with the amber light of hanging bulbs and the hum of exhaustion. Crawford sat with Peter Hall and two others, their uniforms streaked with oil and sweat. "3 gone from Tangmere today," Hall said quietly, staring at his untouched tea. A moment's silence fell. Outside, anti-aircraft guns boomed in the distance. This was their rhythm now: fly, fight, remember. Crawford looked at the photograph tucked in his wallet. His wife, Margaret, smiling in spring sunlight. "We'll make it through, old boy," he said softly. The roar of engines drifted across the field again. Every dawn demanded courage, every night remembrance. They were few, but they were flying for everyone who could not.
Equals August 13th, 1940. Eagle Day. The codename whispered through RAF and Luftwaffe ranks alike. A day to break Britain. Crawford's squadron launched into sunlight barely tinged with peace. Over Kent, the sky turned to chaos. Dozens of German Dornier bombers swept inland, engines droning like heralds of doom. Crawford pulled into a climb, Spitfire trembling at the edge of the clouds. "Red 3, on me," he barked. Cannons barked. Gravity lost meaning as smoke and fire painted the heavens. One Dornier burst into bright fragments. Another glided powerless toward a farmer's field below. The British coast burned beneath fluttering parachutes. Between terror and triumph, Crawford's knuckles whitened on the stick. He whispered to himself, "Hold fast, England."
Equals. Even heroes bled quietly. That evening, the dispersal hut lay silent except for a gramophone whispering a dance tune from long ago. Crawford received the news at dusk. Peter Hall's aircraft had not returned. He stepped out into the open field, eyes lifting to the empty stretch of horizon. The air crackled faintly with residual gunpowder. Above, the contrails drifted like fading scars. He recalled their laughter, the mischief before missions, the dreams for after the war. Every victory came at terrible cost. Medals would tarnish. Names would linger only in wind and records. Yet tomorrow the war would call again. Crawford clenched the leather of his gloves.
For those they lost, they would fly harder, longer, forever, if needed. By September, the war reached London's heart. From 20,000 feet, Crawford watched as the city bled smoke along the Thames. The Luftwaffe had shifted to the capital, endless waves, night after night. Searchlights clawed through darkness, finding bombers like ghosts illuminated in judgment. The air crackled with tracer fire, anti-aircraft bursts, painting the black with orange glooms. "Hold the line, lads," his commander cried. Crawford dived from the clouds, engines shrieking, intercepting another formation before they could reach the docks. The explosions below lit the sky crimson. London burned, but did not break. In sweat and smoke, beneath constant thunder, the British spirit burned brighter than the fires the enemy unleashed.
As autumn tightened its grip, the air grew colder, the days shorter. Yet the sorties continued endlessly, exhaustion stitched into every breath. Crawford's squadron was down to half its original strength. In the morning haze, he climbed once more, engine roaring like defiance. Clouds parted to reveal a dozen enemy aircraft glinting in sunlight. He angled in, heart steady, decision clear. The dogfight that followed spanned miles of sky, each burst of fire blending with the beat of the heart. Near Tunbridge, his fuel light flickered. He dove low, out of range, breathing hard. When he landed, cheers met him. He'd driven the enemy back across the channel again. For a moment, he smiled. They were still holding.
On September 15, 1940, the Luftwaffe hurled everything it had. The British radar screens lit like constellations of doom. Crawford scrambled from Biggin Hill before breakfast, heart pounding. Over London, the sky boiled with machinery, hurricanes, Spitfires, Dornier bombers locked in deadly choreography. His squadron darted through clouds of flak. He lined up a bomber, squeezed the trigger, watched engines flame, but even victory was hollow amidst that inferno. Below, the Thames glimmered through smoke, a thread of silver against ruin. By day's end, the Germans turned back. As silence fell, Crawford exhaled shakily. "We did it," someone said over the radio. The Battle of Britain's turning point had arrived.
In October, the raids dwindled. The airfield, once thunderous with engines, now shuddered in quiet. Leaves bowed under damp morning fog. Crawford walked between rows of battered aircraft, hearing the echoes of those who would never return. Pigeons circled the abandoned hangars where laughter once lived. The Battle of Britain was over, but the war continued elsewhere. Letters arrived from home. Margaret's careful handwriting spoke of hope, of a son soon to be born. Crawford folded the pages gently, felt the ache of everything gained and lost. The stillness held its own weight. Victory, he realized, was never without shadows.
Years later, veterans would remember the summer of 1940 as a season of fire and courage. For James Crawford, it was the time when youth met destiny in a sky ablaze with history. Standing once more at Biggin Hill, he watched fresh recruits take to the air in gleaming new Spitfires. The names of fallen comrades echoed across the wind, carried like whispers through the clouds. England had stood alone and prevailed. In every contrail, every sunrise above the Channel, he saw their legacy written. Steel and spirit intertwined, forged forever, that summer when the world held its breath and a handful of pilots saved it.